Welcome to the World of Warcraft class overview. In this video, we'll be teaching you how to play a Retribution Paladin. Retribution Paladins are heavily armored fighters who use holy magic to heal wounds and combat enemies. Before jumping into anything else, I want to first go over our abilities. Our first passive is Heart of the Crusader. This passive increases your mouse speed by 20%, and this does not stack with other movement speeds. Our second passive is our Mastery, Divine Judgement. It increases the damage by 54% and also causes your Judgement spell to increase damage taken from your Holy Power spenders by 27%. So the more Mastery you have, the number increases. Our third passive is Retribution. When a party or raid member within 40 yards dies, you gain 50% increased damage for 10 seconds. This could be a big opportunity for you to finish off an opponent in a battle. Our fourth passive is Sword of Light. It increases your damage by 5% if you're wielding a two-handed melee weapon. Our first offensive ability is Judgement. It is a 30-yard ranged ability that does holy damage and causes the enemy to take 31% increased damage from your holy power spenders for 8 seconds. This 31% could also increase if your mastery is higher. Judgement could also chain to an additional target for 35% reduced damage. So when I use Judgement here, you'll see me hit 2 targets because there is an additional target nearby. But if you use Judgement to a single target, it will deal much more damage. Also be aware of using this ability because it may break other players' crowd control effects. Blade of Justice is a 12-yard ranged ability that deals great damage and it lets you generate 2 holy powers. Crusader Strike is also one of our main holy power generators. It's on a 3-second cooldown, but depending on your haste, the cooldown can be reduced. Templar Verdict is our main finishing move. It deals a large damage for a cost of 3 holy powers. Divine Storm is an AoE ability that also costs 3 holy powers. Divine Storm also forward damages for 20 yards. Wake of Ashes is our artifact special. It is a 12-yard ability that blows in front of you, causing 50% reduced movement speed and additional dot damage for 6 seconds. Using this ability on a demon or undead, it will stun them for 6 seconds. Hammer of Justice is a 1-minute cooldown stun that lasts for 6 seconds. You want to use this ability to stop your enemy from doing damage or to keep them in a place. Rebuke is our interrupt spell. When you successfully land Rebuke, it will prevent the casters from using any spell in that school for 4 seconds. Avenging Wrath is our biggest buff ability that increases all damage and healing by 35% for 27.5 seconds. So you want to use this ability at the best time and try to do the most damage out of it as you can. Divine Shield is one of the strongest defensive skills we have as a Retribution Paladin. It protects you from all damages and spells for 8 seconds. This spell cannot be used if you have Forbearance. By using Divine Shield or Blessing of Protection, you get the Forbearance buff for 20 seconds. Be careful of how you use this spell because it has a long cooldown of 5 minutes. Blessing of Protection is another shield, but different from Divine Shield, this only protects you from physical damage. This could also be used on yourself or your party members. Same as Divine Shield, this skill cannot be used with Forbearance. Be aware of the classes that I listed here. These classes can take away your shields. Priests can purge both of them, mages can steal Blessing of Protection, and shamans can purge Blessing of Protection as well. Flash Heal is the only regeneration we have as a Retribution Paladin. It heals for a large number, but you can only use it 4 times before you run out of mana. So be careful of how you use this spell because Retribution Paladin's abilities are all based on mana. Cleanse Toxin is an ability where you can remove all poison and disease effects from yourself or your friendly members. It has a cooldown of 8 seconds, so make sure to cleanse yourself or your party members whenever you fight a certain class with these effects. Hand of Hindrance is a slowing ability. Since Retribution Paladins don't have any baseline mobility, this is really important for us. This spell will reduce your enemy target's speed by 70% for 10 seconds, and it has a long cooldown of 30 seconds. Blessing of Freedom is a spell where it grants immunity to the moving impairments for 8 seconds. It can be used on yourself or your party members. Blessing of Freedom can be also purged or spell stealed by the 3 classes that I mentioned in the past. Shield of Vengeance creates a small barrier absorbing 200k damage. When the damage reaches its peak, the absorbed damage deals back to the enemies nearby. I would use this ability when enemies are bursting on you or you're at a low health. Here's some unmentioned abilities. Lay on Hand. Lay on Hand is a spell that can be casted on a friendly target or yourself. It heals equal to your maximum health, and this also can't be used when you have Forbearance. Hand of Reckoning is an ability to taunt a target to attack you. This spell is mostly used in PvE. Redemption is an ability where you can bring back an ally from the dead. This spell cannot be used in combat. Lastly, Debuffs. First off is Blessing of Kings. It absorbs up to 35k damage and refreshes every 6 seconds. Second is Blessing of Might. Attacks have 10% chance to deal 30% additional holy damage. Third, Blessing of Wisdom. Regenerates 1% of maximum health and mana per 15 seconds. You can only maintain up to 3 greater blessings now, so choose wisely on what buffs to give yourself and to your party members. Let's now jump into talents since we just covered all the abilities. I'm going to be showing you 2 talents that I like to play with. One will be for AoE and one will be for single target damage. First, I'll be going over the single target damage talent. For the first one, I choose Final Verdict over Execution Sentence because I want to have that constant damage. By going with this talent, Templar Verdict increases damage by 20% and Divine Storm increases by 10%. Execution is really nice to have if you want to do fat setups, but know that this can also be cleansed off by healers. The second talent is Fires of Justice. It reduces 1.5 second cooldown of your Crusader Strike, and it gives you 20% chance to reduce the cost of your next damaging or healing Holy Power ability. So you basically have 20% chance to get a free Holy Power whenever you use your Crusader Strike. Third talent is Fist of Justice. Every time you deal damage with your Holy Power, it reduces the cooldown of Hammer of Justice by 8 seconds. And Retribution Paladins, we're always spending Holy Powers. So by having this spell, it will allow us to have our stun back much faster. Our fifth talent will be Justicar Vengeance. It costs a large portion of 5 Holy Powers, but the damage that you deal will be equal to the health it will be restoring. It also deals 100% additional damage and healing when you use it against a stun target. Now that healers can't heal much as they did back in WoD, I feel like Justicar Vengeance will be a good choice. If you have a healer that can heal very well, then I will go for Eye for an Eye for that extra defensive skill. For our 7th talent, it's going to be Divine Steed. I played around with all these talents, but I feel like Divine Steed is really needed for us. Since Ret Paladins don't have any baseline mobility, this spell will help you out greatly. But remember, it's on a 45-second cooldown, so use it wisely. For certain arena comps, I would go for Divine Intervention, not only for the auto bubble, but it reduces the Divine Shield cooldown by 50%. Lastly, we're going to go with Divine Purpose. Your Holy Power spending abilities have a 15% chance to make your next Holy Power spending ability for free. And you get a little proc on the side. So this is how the procs look like when you get the Divine Purpose. And I mostly use it on Justicar Vengeance since this costs 5 Holy Powers. But we'll get into rotation after all the talents. I've tried Crusade as well, but it's just not worth it. It increases your damage and haste by 2%, and it could stack up to 50% every time you use your Holy Power. 2 times 15 is 30, and 30% is not that high. And the amount of time you have to put in to stack up that 15 will take a really long time. Just the normal Avenging Wrath itself, it gives you 35% damage and healing, so I feel like this is much better. For our AoE build, the first talent I'm gonna go with is Consecration. It creates a large AoE dealing damage over 8 seconds. The second talent I'm gonna go with is Greater Judgement. Greater Judgement will always crit when the target is above 85% health, and it will jump to 2 additional targets. And the more Judgement we have, the more damage we'll do with Consecration and the Divine Hammer, the next talent I will talk about. Divine Hammer creates a spinning hammer around you, causing damage every second. And with this AoE combination, you will deal a lot of AoE damage. For our PvP talent, the first talent will be Gladiator's Medallion. This is basically the trinket that we had in the past that removes all impairing effects or loss of control effects on your character. Second one is hardness. While above 80% health, you take 20% less damage. For the third one, I decided to go with jurisdiction even though law and order is pretty tempting, because having this ability will make my Hammer of Justice 20 yards. For example, in high MMR arenas, enemies will know that you're coming for the stun. Even though you're on target A and you're trying to stun your focus target B, you won't be able to reach him because the Hodge is 10 yards. If you walk up to target B, he will notice you coming for the stun and just kite away. And with all the movement speed that Paladin doesn't have, having this extra range for your stun will be good. For the fourth PvP talent, I'm probably gonna switch in between these two. When I fight a comp that has poisons or diseases, I probably go with Pure of Heart, because whenever you or an ally within 10 yards are healed from any source, they're cleaned of all diseases and poisons. But when we don't fight against comps that doesn't have any of those, I probably go with Holy Ritual, because it heals me every time we use a blessing skill, such as Blessing of Protection and Blessing of Freedom. For our fifth talent, I recommend Blessing of Sanctuary. I actually had Vengeance Aura on because I'm not playing any serious arena right now, but when you go into serious arena, you want to have this on. It's a 25-second cooldown ability that instantly removes all stun, silence, fear, and horror effects, and it also reduces the future duration of any effects by 60%. For 5 seconds. This spell is really strong, and your healers will love you. Honestly, if you take this talent, your healers could probably run Relentless or Adaptation, since you could get their CC almost all the time. But if you want to do bigger damage, go with Vengeance Aura. Whenever your allies are a victim to a full loss control effect, your holy damage and critical strike chances increase by 3% for 10 seconds, and it stacks up to 10 times. And Vengeance Aura allows you to hit super hard when your allies are in a loss of control. So I'd probably use this for a team that has a lot of CC or in RPGs. Lastly, Lawbringer. I've tried all these other talents, but I feel like Lawbringer is the strongest. It increases the duration of your judgment by 30 seconds, and anytime you cast Judgement, all enemies with your Judgment effect suffer 6% of their total health and holy damage. Alright, for our last one, let's go over our rotation. So our rotation is pretty simple now, and you always want to start out with Judgement, since our mastery is based on Judgement and your spec for Lawbringer. So besides stun, you always want to start with Judgement. I'm actually going to go over 2 rotations, and I'll show you the first one. I'm going to use my spell slowly as well. So first, you want to stun, pop your burst, Judgement, Blade of Justice, Crusader Strike, Templar Verdict since you have 3 holy power, then Wake of Ashes, Templar Verdict, another Crusader Strike for another 3, and another Templar Verdict, and another Templar Verdict. Actually, these procs, I should have turned it off. It's gonna throw us off. So one more time. You don't have to pop your wings as well. This is just one rotation. You could pop your wing and do this rotation, but without it will be stun, Judgement, Blade of Justice, Crusader Strike, Templar Verdict, Wake of Ashes, Templar Verdict, Crusader Strike, Templar Verdict, etc. And Judgement should last longer, but since we're not in PvP, Lawbringer doesn't pop up right now. So when you're in PvP, your Judgement effect will probably go longer. So you want to start with Judgement, Wake of Ashes, Templar Verdict, Blade of Justice, Crusader Strike, Templar Verdict, Crusader Strike, and another Templar Verdict. So you always have that 3 Templar Verdict. Again, Judgement, Wake of Ashes, Templar Verdict, Blade of Justice, Crusader Strike, Templar Verdict, Crusader Strike, Templar Verdict. So it equals out perfectly. I like to use the second rotation a lot more because you get to start with Wake of Ashes, and if you start with Wake of Ashes, you will get the cooldown back a lot faster. But if you're getting kited and you can't land that Wake of Ashes, say this guy's running from you and you're trying to land that Wake of Ashes and you miss, then you're not going to get that 5 holy power or the slow. So just to catch up, you could do an alternative by starting by Blade of Justice and Crusader Strike and Templar Verdict. I'm now going to be showing you guys 1 or 2 duels just to give you a better idea on the rotation. If you guys are interested in seeing more duels in arenas, I have a lot of videos uploaded already, and I'll probably upload more in the future. I just don't want to make this video too long. Also for our stat priority, it's going to be Strength, Mastery, Versatility, and Haste. Our first tool, make sure to start with Judgement. I'm going to hold Stun, Trinket Stun because I know he's going to reflect after that stun. Wake of Ashes, Templar Verdict, Blade of Justice, Crusader Strike, Templar Verdict, Crusader Strike, Templar Verdict. After this here, I'm going to try to throw Judgement and end the duel. In this duel, I'm going to start with Stun because priests don't have Reflect. I'm going to start with Stun, Judgement, Wake of Ashes, Templar Verdict, Blade of Justice. Got feared here. I don't have Trinket from the last duel, but it's fine. Freedom for slow, Judgement, trying to catch our rotation is going to be a little different, but it's fine. The importance is just don't go over 5 holy power and make sure you use it, because you don't want to waste any holy powers. Templar Verdict, Stun, kill the Siphon because that slows you and you can't free them from those slows. You're gonna do a Blade of Justice, Templar Verdict, Wake of Ashes, Templar Verdict, and end the duel with the Crusade here. Hope this video gave you a better idea on how to play a Retribution Paladin. Thanks for watching and see you guys in Legion.